Hey, happy Tuesday morning, everyone, and welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. And this is video number 54 in our thematic study of 1 Corinthians chapter 15. Well, we are told by the commentators that in 1 Corinthians 15, 24 and following, Paul said, "Then comes the end when he shall deliver up the kingdom to the Father. And for he must reign until he has put all enemies under his feet." Obviously, we are told, it says Christ will stop reigning one of these days. He must reign until all enemies are put under his feet. Well, here's the problem. As we have demonstrated very effectively, pretty much irrefutably, there is no end to Christ's rule and reign. There is no end to Christ's priesthood. So this, he must reign until, by the way, that he must reign is in the present infinitive, carrying with it the force he must continue to reign, which means that he was reigning at the time Paul wrote. Christ was on the throne at the right hand of the Father, ruling and reigning at the time Paul wrote. That is very, very critical. It does not say Christ is waiting to rule and to reign. He must continue to reign, from Paul's perspective, until he has put his enemies under his feet. Now, the word "until" is an interesting word. Does it normally have a terminal sense? Such and such will be done until such a time. After that, it will no longer be done. Indeed, it has that meaning. However, there are many instances in the New Testament in which the words that word that is translated "until" does not carry with it the terminal significance. There are passages in the New Testament, I'm not even going to take the time to develop them at this point because I'm going somewhere else right now, but there are passages in the New Testament in which the idea is you do something up to this point of time, and after that point of time, you do it in a brand new sense. Jesus said, "I will not take of this cup, of this table, until I take it new with you." New significance. Now, it is absolutely important to understand that when Paul said he must continue to reign until he has put all enemies under his feet, and he turns immediately around and quotes Psalms 110. "Sit thou at my right hand, pardon me, until I make your enemies your footstool." So here is Paul. He quotes from Psalms 110, which predicted that the Messiah, by the way, as a priest forever on the throne, Messiah would sit at the right hand until all of his enemies were put under his feet. And he says, "Rule thou in the midst of your enemies." So, here is the seating on the throne. Rule in the midst of your enemies. Rule until your enemies are put under you. Christ was seated at the right hand. He must continue to reign until the enemies are put under his feet. Now, let me ask you a very simple question. When a king has conquered all of his enemies, does he abdicate and say, "Well, time to let somebody else rule and reign now"? No. It is through conquering his enemies as the king by which his kingdom is consolidated and confirmed and fully established. When David became king, which is where all this is taken from, by the way. When David was made king, he had one challenge after another to his kingly authority. So what did he do? He reigned in the midst of his enemies, and he put his enemies down and then ruled in peace. Here is Jesus, the son of David, seated at the right hand of the Father. By the way, David sat on the throne of God. Did you know that? David sat on the throne of God. Anyway, here is Christ, seated at the right hand of the Father, ruling in the midst of his enemies, ruling during the period of time at the conflict, a conflict that was not against flesh and blood, 2 Corinthians 10, 1-2, that was against spiritual wickedness in high places, in the heavenly places, Ephesians 6, 17 and following. He would rule in the midst of his enemies until his enemies were put down. And what would he do then? All of that was to confirm his rule, confirm his reign. The task given to him by the Father would be complete, and what would he do? According to Revelation 22, verse 3, he would sit down with the Father on the Father's throne, and they would rule and reign together forever and forever. You see how that works? 1 Corinthians 15 is not talking about Jesus ending his rule, reigning until a terminal point. It is talking about Jesus accomplishing the consolidation and the confirmation of his kingdom. At his coming, at his parousia, the last enemy would be destroyed, and his kingdom would be fully confirmed and established. His kingdom, reign, his rule, his throne would be forever and forever. And we got more on this on the flip side. So we'll see you there.